So we're going to talk about Cloud PBX portal, Cloud Contact Center. It's the same portal. Why we like to highlight both names these days is because essentially it was always the Cloud PBX portal, but we now obviously extended it a bit to give small call centers, small cloud contact centers, the tools that they need to use this portal as well. We don't see ourselves, we don't envision going up against the Genesis and 5x8s or whatever the solutions are for large enterprise call centers. But we do see our job at PortaOne to give SMEs, SMBs the tools that they need. And they sometimes have small or requirements for small call centers, right? So anything from maybe 5 to, let's say, 50 agents. But of course, there's no hard number here. It all depends on, say, for instance, the things that we don't have is omnichannel, what obviously Nick can help you with. What we don't currently have is sophisticated or more advanced call distribution strategies. But what we do have is wallboards, supervisor panels, and things like that. So that's where we see call widgets or wallboard widgets and things like that to have supervisors of small call centers keep in the loop of what's happening about their agent statistics, agent performance, and so on. So that's something that we're actively building on. So that's why I wanted to quickly just clarify here that you sometimes see Cloud PBX and Cloud Contact Center. It's the exact same portal. There's not two or anything. It's the same one. Key strategies, obviously white labeling. So we do want to enable you to put your brand on or your reseller's brand, depending on what the market asks for. It's a very lightweight white labeling, so it doesn't need a lot of it doesn't take very long, and I think we even have a configuration portal in the cloud in Add-on Mart built in where you can do your own white labeling. So you can upload your logos, you can change your colors and so on, so you don't even necessarily need to engage us for that. And of course, as part of the Cloud PBX portal, there's now almost like a small ecosystem of solutions in Add-on Mart that work well or that makes sense to be used together with Cloud PBX portal. And that's the one that I wanted to briefly talk about. Focus on onboarding here to maximize uptake. That's a point where now we try to make this portal as user-friendly as possible because, of course, we realize you may not have a lot of resources to train your resellers or to train the IT teams of your customers. So that's why, of course, it was designed in a way that's hopefully as self-evident as possible. But in order to maximize uptake, I think it's still a good idea to plan for some sort of training material. It doesn't have to be one-on-one, but we found, for instance, what works well for us is to have the YouTube clips that we have, and you're obviously welcome to use those for your reseller-based or reseller-focused training. So you're definitely welcome to use those. Or you can always produce your own content in that way if you feel that might work better for you. So let's take a look at which add-ons. Those are the ones that I see are part of the Cloud PBX ecosystem. And we talked about a few here, and you might have seen some in the YouTube clips. So I thought it's a good idea because this number is now starting to increase. So I feel like it's a good idea to maybe talk a little bit about what does what and which ones should you combine and where is there maybe some overlap and so on. So one of the obvious choices is obviously PortaPhone. So PortaPhone is our WebRTC SDK. With both 2 mobile dialers for Android and iOS, and also the web dialer. So that's a full web page dialer with contact lists, call history, and all those sort of things. Then we have a small extension to PortaPhone, which is the PortaPhone Web Widgets. We'll show you this in just a second here as part of the hands-on part. What's nice about the PortaPhone Web Widget is you can build this. So this is a JavaScript widget. So you can easily take that code for the PortaPhone Web Widget and include it in any third-party web app where you have access to including third-party JavaScript. So this could be a CRM. This could be a trouble ticket system. Anywhere where your customers may need access to dialing capability for inbound, outbound calls. And they don't necessarily want to use either the mobile phone or a desk phone and so on. This web widget could be quite useful. And again, we'll show you in a minute what that looks like. Then we have PortaPhone CRM. So this is obviously just a marketing name for the PortaOne dialers. So those ones are slightly different because they live on the CRM marketplaces. So they live in the Zoho marketplace, they live in the HubSpot marketplace, they live in the Fresh Sales marketplace. That would give your brand visibility on those marketplaces. And you can basically, or your SMBs or your enterprises, or even new customers that don't even yet have your phone service would find you on those marketplaces, install the CRM dialer apps, and start using them. Obviously, they would have to sign up to your service if they're completely brand new customers. For existing customers, they can use their existing phone service from you. PortaPhone CRM, the front end is what PortaOne developed. So they developed the front end for call pop. So basically, if an inbound call comes in, the agent would see in the CRM right away which contact it's associated with. It has the capability for call notes and obviously keeping track of your call records directly in the CRM. So this is most useful, this add-on here, is most useful for those SMBs and enterprises that live in or work in the CRM system. Okay, for those that have CRMs. Because they may not want to necessarily constantly switch between the CRM and the Cloud PBX portal just to make a phone call. It's very interruptive to workflow. So in that case, you may want to have the dialer directly integrated in the CRM. As a backend, this uses PortaPhone. So it does require a PortaPhone subscription. It uses the PortaPhone backend to make these calls happen. Auto dialer. It's currently in MVP stage, so it's very basic. We're basically looking for customer feedback, if that's something that you like, that you need. But it's basically, it has the capability for you to upload a CSV spreadsheet of numbers to dial, and then the auto dialer will basically just dial those numbers for you. So that's sort of the basic capabilities that it can already do. It doesn't have anything more advanced in terms of campaign management or anything like that. It is something that sometimes pops up in requirements, but we haven't gotten to the point yet where we truly understand of what's needed. So we even make you an offer here. If you're interested in this, give it a try. Use it for 6, 9, maybe even 12 months at no charge, but give us feedback. Give us an idea of what you actually need for this auto dialer. Then we have Helios, what Nick had already talked about here as an omnichannel CX platform. Again, the voice capability in Helios is powered by PortaPhone. So we see it as a natural extension or belongs into this ecosystem. When would you use Helios as opposed to maybe other options? And Nick, feel free to chime in, obviously, here. The way I see it is Helios is most useful for those SMBs that don't have a CRM yet and that don't necessarily, again, want to keep switching between their trouble ticket system or their customer engagement system and the phone system. So for those folks, I think Helios will be a perfect fit because they can work in Helios, they can answer and make outbound calls, WhatsApp messages, text messages, emails, and so on, and use it as a basic CRM. Because as we all know, a CRM implementation can be quite heavy, and SMBs or SMEs may not have the resources or the need to have a full-blown CRM like, say, HubSpot or Zoho. Teams integration, not directly related here, but I thought it's still important to list it because more and more organizations use Microsoft or live in the Microsoft ecosystem. And so Teams integration would simply be useful for those guys to connect and enhance the Microsoft PBX with more advanced call features that PortaSwitch enables you to use. So we have multiple blog articles about this, but basically PortaSwitch we see as an enhancement over the basic Microsoft PBX and features they have, or obviously Teams integration could also be just the trunking features that you give dial tone to Microsoft through your voice network. Speech to text. So this is the transcription module that we have that uses OpenAI's Whisper engine to transcribe. Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, for voicemails or for calls? The transcription.
Transcription for call recording.
Call recording. Okay, not voicemails.
Is actually in pipeline.
Okay, so the voicemail transcription is in a pipeline, but call recording can be transcribed using OpenAI's Whisper. But yes, what's that? We'll show this one as well. Okay, so let's go. Any questions on here? Otherwise, we'll move on to the practical portion. All right.
So yeah, does the agent have to install an instance of PortaOne? Using a separate binary that then PortaPhone Web Widget then talks to? Or how does that?
For this one? No, it doesn't.
No, let's say the PortaPhone CRM. How does that thing actually then, you say based on using PortaPhone?
Yes.
How does it actually talk to PortaPhone?
WebRTC. No binary needed. I can even use it on my Mac. It's we'll show you, but no installation necessary.
You say PortaPhone, it's just the WebRTC, right?
Yes. Yeah. So it uses the browser's WebRTC and talks to the PortaPhone backend to make the inbound outbound calls, and the backend of PortaPhone converts WebRTC to ZIP and then basically communicates with PortaZip. It's supposed to, not here. I've done it. I've used it on Safari. I've used it on Chrome, but not here. Okay, Mike is determined to make it happen.
So the PortaPhone CRM doesn't include Microsoft Dynamics?
Not yet. But I do believe Microsoft Dynamics is something that PortaOne has worked on and worked with before. So if that's of interest, then yes, it could be the fourth one that they add for us, besides HubSpot, Zoho, and Freshsales. Yeah. All right. So this is our Cloud PBX portal. So I'm logged in as a supervisor. The supervisor has a few special powers. It can monitor calls. It can spy, whisper, barge into calls. And it can basically monitor agents and their performance here. Log in and out of queues and so on. So the supervisor has some additional statistics that they can access in here. All of that can be managed in portal users. So the Cloud PBX portal actually now has its own database, and we can set up additional portal users here with various types. This is the web widget here that we see. So as I said, This widget, Keith, no installation necessary, and it's a JavaScript code that can be added on third-party websites and web portals.
In this case, it's embedded into the Cloud PBX.
Yeah. So we just embedded it here, but again, it could be embedded anywhere. Login is the self-care or portal login. So let me go to my extensions. We're going to make a few call scenarios happen, hopefully here, but the rest of this is designed to be also driven by your interest. So this is our web widget. We see the recent calls. So this is all API calls to Porta Billing, obviously in the back end. The contact list here, recent calls, and we obviously have our keypad. So I think Mike is going to make a call between two extensions. I'm supervisor, so I'm going to try to barge in, right? Is that still the plan?
Yes.
Okay, let's try
Doesn't
that.
have to be extension.
Yeah, I think Mike is calling our PortaOne Centrics,
Yeah, just
1-800 number.
give me a second.
One of the recent enhancements here is you no longer have to refresh the supervisor panel. So it's auto refresh, and when calls are being made, they automatically pop up.
Well, first, just test it out. I'll call you.
Incoming call.
Yes.
You see, this is normally what happens with the call. I call him, and it takes a while. Sometimes doesn't even bother to call the answer.
I'm in a different time zone, Mike. Stop calling me at night.
Sorry, I was aware of that. Yeah, so you see the call live. Klaus, would you care to explain what is it?
Yeah, so we see here both the inbound and the outbound callback, since one extension is calling another extension. So on the supervisor panel, we see that's why we see two lines here. And then the supervisor has basically just the capabilities here for any ongoing call to either spy, whisper to the agent, or barge in, which connects the supervisor to the call.
You're going to have to add some additional icons there for the AI agent.
Yes. The AI supervising the supervisor?
Yes.
Yes. Or an AI that automatically translates your call if you're calling outbound to a language that you don't speak. Yeah. Obviously, as soon as the call is hung up, we would see it in recent calls, and in the call statistics, it should be automatically updated. So we do see the call here. We can play the recording, so recording is enabled, and it looks like let's just check it out. So that's just the CDR, and we can download the recording. And that's the transcription portion as well. So if that module is enabled, Mike, how long does it take? The call recording?
It was a short call, so usually
Yeah.
a couple of minutes.
And the transcription?
Yeah, I mean recording and transcription. Because recording is what, 1 minute?
Okay.
You get it in like in 10 seconds because the system is
Well, let's take a look. If we have something useful here.
Yeah, it's a little bit extra if you complaining about my calls.
Oh, that's the PortaOne Centrics. That's your outbound call.
Okay, so
Yeah. So we do see here, that's our message that you hear when you call our Canadian 1-800 number. Oh, that's pretty good.
the AI is very good at transcribing pre-recorded audio, professional audio prompts.
Just curious, have you started using any of sort of call transcription services? Is it something that's Yeah. What are you using? OpenAI as well, or?
No, it's accurate position, but actually quite good feedback.
Yeah.
The accuracy even on Dutch English in this country.
Yeah. Do you use it also for something I think that was requested by a few of our customers, the sentiment analysis? So basically analyzing the call's tone, whether it's aggressive, neutral, and so on.
Not at the moment. We use third-party plugin.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
It's also just downloading the recording into shared storage.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's quite interesting from a compliance point of view, I think, to run calls and monitor calls through and sentiment analysis, because then you can also block out when an agent asks for credit cards or things like that wouldn't comply to policies to ask, on the phone, obviously, because otherwise credit cards just appear on your call records. Okay.
Typical size for this call center? And the number of agents you would typically run in this call center?
There isn't, it's a good question, but there isn't really a hard number, just because there's no limit on our end how many extensions you can add here. So as long as you're happy with sort of the capabilities here of building your auto attendant trees, right? So this is here the main IVR. You can visually drag and drop or creating your IVRs. And as long as you're happy with the ring groups and the call distribution strategies, you could use it for larger call centers of 500 agents, no problem. I just have a suspicion once you have big call centers that have maybe 500 agents, they oftentimes need something more.
I actually had a very insightful conversation with one of my customers who runs call center traffic, and asked him exactly the same question, like how does he use that? And he said for them, the sweet spot is like 50 agents plus minus 25. So pretty much like from 20 to up to 100, that could be the range, because he explained why. Like for small ones, in many cases, you don't actually need all these bulk business. For bigger ones, you still need this, but the complexity of the system increases. Like you need to connect that to HR systems to move the agents from one group to another, distributed based on different languages. Kind of the internal hierarchy of the bigger call centers require different approach.
Thanks for the question, much appreciated. I mean, these capabilities of the portal here, they're obviously directly related to the functionality of PortaSwitch, of what's available in the backend, right? So there isn't anything different here. It's just available in a more user-friendly way of what our old IP-Centrics back in the day used to be like. But having said that, a couple features, especially like Call Whisper Barge, was specifically added after we created the portal because folks knew we needed it. But this is kind of sort of what we wanted to show, and I think a couple more things here on the wallboard side. This is I think we currently have support for just 2 widgets, if I recall. But this is obviously something that's under constant development and requires your feedback. So if you're interested in this and say, look, we're aware that there's certain reporting needs that we currently don't have yet on this platform. And I think that's already in the queue for one of the upcoming releases, I think, hopefully in the spring, if we get around. But we already have that in the pipeline. But obviously, if there's any other widgets in terms of monitoring call or agent performance, let us know of what else would be needed for. And it looks like Mike, do you know what the external for iframe is? So you can basically include third-party. Yeah, right here for the wallboard.
Yeah, you can, like, if you need some extra data from CRM or whatever,
Okay.
you could kind of embed it in the
Yeah. Any questions? Pretty self-explanatory. Jan? Yeah?
supervisor panel is this only like this. I'm actually looking at ours and I don't see it.
Do you have a portal user with supervisor credentials?
I don't have that option.
Okay, then it's probably still on the what maintenance release are you
When
on?
is it? When you set that?
110? Let me see. I may have to log in as a regular user. Let's see, to come to your portal users. Yeah, so add new, and I believe, so you don't see that, eh? The role.
I see the role, but I don't have something.
Yeah, I'd have to check.
Yeah, because if I look at the permissions of the role that we have, it's closed.
Okay. So it might either be a support question or it might be that the portal needs to be upgraded to the latest release.
And
Yeah.
question, that widget is that you subscribe.
Yes. I think it's an extra $195, I believe.
Zero for the photo.
We use Jan's photo in our agenda. Yeah. Well, reach out to me. Well, yeah.
I think which would be quite interesting is if you could have the equivalent of a barge in for remote agents like working in your call centers, the supervisor can push a button and actually see the agent.
So for the remote agent to use their mobile phone to call in and to act as the agent, or?
Video will turn on so that the supervisor can actually see the staff working in the call center.
True spying, not just spying by
Listening
video,
to the
video
call.
spying.
Like I have a wallboard.
Yeah, the video stream.
Yeah.
I can use video call. Yeah, because obviously the video doesn't go to the other person.
Yeah.
To me.
That would be something. Do supervisors? I'm keen. Like I'm interested. Do they use that?
Well,
Like
not
sort of.
just,
Yeah.
Yeah,
but it'd be nice for remote
the question
workers.
is it Uber?
Yeah,
Can it do that?
like you see it's part of the job. I want to go to look at how you're working remote. I want to go to see what's happening in your background while you're actually at the office,
Mhm.
at your home office,
Mhm.
not sitting in the car. And you also do
Right. Yeah.
Or
We
having
call the
users-
micromanagement extension.
Yes, this a new trend of creating avatar, AI built avatars
Yeah,
that sits instead of you in the, in the conference call.
Yeah.
Are you able to add notes on some like listening to the recording?
No. So that would be something that's more CRM capability, which Helios supports. Yeah. But here, no. Yeah.
And then also, sorry, last
Yeah.
on the call recording, what's the thing?
That's configurable. So depending on what your storage is, I think it can be as long as you need it. I do know that some South African customers use Call Cabinet for call or for compliant storage of call records. But even in PortaSwitch, you can store call records for as long as you need to.
Actually,
Now you can charge.
I discussed that particular question about the nodes on call with the customer of mine who runs that business. He said, like, there are two ways of doing it. You can do complex integration between CRM and the dialer. So you open the dialer and put in the node, and then an API pushes that node to the CRM, and the CRM identifies that muted. And so it's all possible and totally kind of legitimate way of doing things. Or he said, you can simply divide your screen into two parts, and one gonna be the dialer, another one gonna be your CRM.
Mhm.
You will get exactly the same result with no extensive engineering process.
And also maybe to add to that, I had already mentioned it to someone else this morning. One of our colleagues who uses or is expert in our low-code, no-code platform, PortaOne Workflows, he's offered to build an internal tool for any Zoom call that we record to the cloud. It will transcribe it. I think this might be a Zoom capability, but the workflow will copy it to our HubSpot. So as soon as the transcription is done in Zoom, we get it as a record on whoever we were talking to in our HubSpot, and it's quite like, it seems like magic, but yeah, it's quite nice to automate it that way. So because I'm bad at taking notes during calls. I'm so focused on listening to what the person has to say that I forget to. So I am very thankful and grateful for these sort of automatic transcription tools.
And the only thing you need to do after that is to assign like speaker one to a specific person, speaker two to another person, and after that it's like all arranged, and every phrase anybody pronounced is all recorded in the set.
And as an addition, what Mike just said after your question about call records and storing and so on, there is now options to charge customers for their call storage. So Mike, does it go by?
It's not for storage, it's basically charging per hour of phone call. So
Oh, that's right.
Because earlier
To
the
monetize.
only option, you just use some sort of subscription, but you may have a call center which is 3 agents and that much of calling colleagues, and another call center of 100 agents and totally different size of calling. So now it's possible to differentiate and charge differently because it's per hour charge, not just a simple subscription. Yeah. But what I wanted to say, this widget on the screen, right? This PortaPhone widget, which is embedded in the Porta. This application was mostly built with the idea that call center people do not work in some sort of PortaPhone web page or PortaPhone or anything. Their main job is in another system, most likely CRM, or maybe some other thing. So they don't need this dialer to take all space in front of their eyes, right? And that's why we built this widget, so that if call center people work with CRM, we just could you minimize it? There is just a tiny space in the corner of a CRM page. But
And you still see the inbound
Yeah,
call.
but when you need to make a call, it just pops up and you start talking to the person.
And where is the WebRTC the audio codec translation happening? Because that must take some horsepower.
There is a backend part for the PortaPhone, and it includes how you call it, transcoding server.
Is it running on the SIP server or is it separate?
No, it's
It's
separate.
not on the SIP server. It's a separate backend.
But it counts as a separate node.
It's not even part of PortaSwitch. No. It's part of PortaPhone.
And that's always deployed in the cloud. And I think WebTrit has a simplified architecture. So WebTrit is our partner company or sister company. We sell their technology as PortaPhone, but WebTrit is there for those companies that don't have PortaSwitch. They can still use our WebRTC SDK. So if they want to use it with Asterisk, Sippy, I don't know, Broadsoft.
Sorry, Klaus.
Yes.
I don't think they're mature enough to be called system. They're probably Docker.
I'm not getting into that. But on a very high level, PortaPhone is simply two components. It's the front end dialers and it's the back end. But the back end has multiple things like the push notifications to wake up the apps. It's the WebRTC to SIP conversion.
You then have to set up a SIP trunk from there to each Porta.
Well, the PortaPhone talks directly. You don't need to set up SIP trunks, but PortaPhone gets registered to PortaSIP. Like not a SIP registration, but when you deploy PortaPhone backend, you basically gets pointed to an IP address of your PortaSIP. Okay, very good. Great. Well, I hope it's been useful in clarifying a bit of what's available and how the pieces fit together. If there's still uncertainties, or you watch the recording of today's session and you forward it to some of your colleagues that maybe weren't able to attend, please always feel free to reach out to us at PortaOne. We can always connect you with the folks that know directly. If it's not something that we know, like say for instance some of the questions about the certificates, then of course we'll tap into our experts at WebTrit or our engineering team and connect you to them. And if you're interested in any of those add-ons, feel free to sign up to Add-on Mart at no charge. And there's always going to be a POC for any of the apps available for free for 30 days. And if need be, we can extend that trial period as well. But yeah, if any questions, let us know. Great. Well, thanks so much for sticking around. Appreciate it. And hope you have a wonderful evening and a good weekend.